That's Grace Darling. I like the name, Darling Grace. Did it get wet?
Everybody knows who Grace Darling is.
Oh look, it's up.
Shut up! Shut up!
It's round. Yes, please. I like these people doing
He first drew and said, does it look like a duck? And I was saying yes. He measured the height.
She was like, I don't think someone over there hasn't bought any tickets yet. Megan, we have a Tony the Tugboat for you.
And somewhere as well.
Yes,
Yes, it is.
He's at the bar, there he
He's
is.
got blue things on. Why? What's wrong with him? He's on drugs or something?
No, it's...
Right.
What, my chips? Established, but
How much is it?
Found the strip. Kick it out.
You're a lighthouse. Actually, not a boat. He's a character in a boat.
Really slapped in that costume. Rumour has it slept in Footleg's costume.
After we walked before bed about 7 times in the morning.
You did chuck it to the morning you walked out next to the bus and there's things.
But I saw about 4 times before. And 1 fight
What are you doing now?
I'm not eating. Going outside.
Adrian's wife back.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, assuming that I'll draw the second prize.
They're only pocket. You got a jacket?
Hey, I've got ticket 737. Rescue organisation, the Upper Wharfdale Bell Rescue concerns breakfast tomorrow. Anybody who's not got a room, anybody sleeping on the floor that wants breakfast tomorrow, they come and see me after the
You're cooking it.
dinner. Unfortunately not tonight. Right, well it's this time of year again. I'd like to welcome everybody to this year's dinner meet. Even those of you who didn't actually happen. It's actually quite a, well, I don't know actually, it is quite a small dinner this year, but I was told it was. Apparently a large number of people prefer to get a good drenching in Scotland to getting pissed in the Dale.
Miserable old bastards.
Well, what's been happening in ULSA this last year? Well, this year has seen 3 more ULSA weddings. First of all, there was Rod Smith and Sally. Then there was John and Anne, also known as Yeti and Worm. They can't be here today because they're off digging the Channel tunnels. And finally in October there was Mr. Hitler, also known as John Cougar, and Liz. On the more active side, ULSA has branched out a bit from caving. There were several members going climbing. One group going out to Broad Peak, an 8,000 metre peak, but unfortunately stopping at 6,000 metres. Something to do with the weather, I believe.
2 kilometres.
Oh, sorry, 6,000 metres. Only to find that the Indians had been there a year before. And this new spirit of climbers even ventured into caving. We saw Paul Monaco and others venturing towards Mossdale with crampons and ice axes in the hand in order to climb up a mud slope. Which unfortunately had already peeled off the rock. they explained to the gamekeeper not only were they trespassing, what they were doing with ice axes and branches. On the caving scene, ULSA has once again avoided Penny Gent. But not for long. but has returned to older stamping grounds, White Scar Cave, where Alf Latham, along with several other ULSA members, returned to a lead he left in the Sleepwalker series 20 years ago. And then found another 400 foot of passage called Memory Lane. Diving, well, there's been a lot more diving. Diving has continued in Nidderdale, Dentdale and Chapelverdale. And the main event was this summer, when a combined ULSA and cave diving group trip to the Guiers Veep in Chartreuse, France, enjoyed a good month of drinking, gorge bashing, which culminated in pushing the Guiers Veep to the Trou de Flamme, finding a 20-kilometre long system. While this was happening, another part of ULSA, the ULSA Rescue Club, was involved in the first of its 2 meets of this last year. The first one being in Easgill at Top Sink. Those involved are not here. They're either in Scotland or London recovering from skiing or something. Well, I mean, you know, London boys, you can sort of understand that kind of long way off the Dales, not much chance to go caving. But the second trip, well, I mean, just look at on a trip to far waters, when it was raining, well, well, I don't usually give prizes. That's usually the last president's bit, but I couldn't resist it. Right, well, first of all, what I thought was, you know, so many rescues, kids, stuck down kids, passive eventualities. So I thought I'd introduce an ULSA rescue kit. Very, very simple instructions. If you find yourself underground and are unable to exit without recourse to the CRO. Number 2, find an obscure side passage. Dig a shallow trench to lie in. And number 4, do the honourable thing. So,
if you hadn't brought the rope, Watty, we'd have been all right.
well, that's
We should probably be very to keep warm.
I told him to take the rope.
right, what else has happened? Well, the freshers meet, got a nice, another good batch of freshers, and we also saw the first. Okay, alright, a falling bunch of dropouts and losers.
So it takes too long to be a fresher these days. When you're a good kid,
We also saw the first instalment of the ULSA feature film. This gentleman at the back making part 2. Then, of course, later on was Rocket Man at the Pennine Hut. More may be heard of that later, I suspect. And finally, what about the lost president? Where is he?
It's always the same.
I mean, next year's dinner meet is going to be held at Brian's Fish and Chip Shop. But a final thing, I mean, after last year's celebrations, you know, ULSA's, he wouldn't tell me how old he was. So hopefully this has got enough candles. Happy birthday, dear Martin.
he's going to be.
Broken eggs.
Where's the scar one last year?
It's feet tied together.
Oh my god, it's a Watty map coming in.
It's not about climbing, is it?
Which one's C? No, I just...
Mr. President. As the person who is supposed to be in charge of the raffle, it is only I'll try to present to you the official report of the year's Spain and Russian proceedings. Fresh from an outrageous summer in France, as you've heard already, the year commenced with the usual knees-up in Chappellydale, which saw the usual crack attempts at fancy dress, the worst perhaps being Paul Pop, who disguised himself as some sort of condom.
She made it! One thing on the line.
Jeremy, who disguised himself as the Grim Reaper for probably the 4th time. As usual, 3/4 of those who went for the first time never ever came again, and the fattest were, of course, peer pressured into going through the cartwheel and getting stuck in it. Now, the year started with what most considered an ill omen. That is to say, after Catford unanimously agreed that there could never, should never be another Doug Hanley. There was. He had longer hair, he had a worse tasting clothes, and a beard from hell. This, though, has since been removed. And, he also had the ludicrous name of Cabbage, and he's never proved anybody wrong. His main claim to fame, though, is the appearance on bus meets of fireworks. The cult of fire was very soon epidemic, really, and who knows what the locals of Ingleton made of a Leeds commercial minibus streaking through the village centre at 1 AM with green, red and blue flames sweeping through the other fairly remarkable achievement concerning fireworks belongs to the Sid Peru of ULSA, now affectionately known due to an unfortunate spelling mistake as Tonk Cock. This occurred at one of Footleg's firework parties where, after Tony had lit his homemade version of the ICBM, he retreated to a safe distance only to see his creation become entangled in telephone wires a matter of feet from the assembly. And then explode, disrupting both Footleg's parents and local communication. A further trait of the first term was its so-called mystic quality, which it attained by its near-death experience in at least 3 separate but not unrelated incidents. The first one concerned a gentleman who presumably was so amazed at having negotiated 36 people from Bradford University on a freshers trip down Ivy Fell that he forgot all about the last 50-foot pitch and decided to walk down it. He was saved literally at the last step by our redoubtable treasurer, Paul Pop. The second one was also down Ivy Fell. Lured, you see, by our incredibly promising dig. The one that goes on for about 500 metres before we ever get there. Our pet Mendit man descended on a day which, by and large, was generally considered to be a bit wet. After digging for some time, they suddenly realised that even though they were about 300 foot from Duke Street to a twisty, turny passage, they could in fact hear a roaring streamway. This was not good, so an exit was made, only to find that the usually slightly wet duck under formations in the streamway, and in fact the streamway itself was more akin to Blue Doom than Ivy Fell. Now, the third incident was in that other much rescued from place, Kingsdale Master Cave. All that needed to be said involved myself, Paul Pot, and about 75 million freshers, most of them never ever came again, and a roof level bolt traverse on dodgy makeshift house tails.
What is that term?
Answer and find out.
But what, I've just learned to nip me off.
Who must
who initially thought they were at Scalbra's Fantasyland water park when they threw themselves into the 5-foot streamway, only to find 2 seconds and 200 yards later it was actually a bit fast. And also in attendance were the obligatory old gits who, according to their leader, last went caving about 10 years ago, also down Swinstow when, according to one of them, it wasn't quite this wet. The adventures never really stopped once we left the cave. Often they consider continue well into the early hours of Sunday. On these 3 occasions it was simply by force of willpower that the bus ever made it to Skipton and Petrol. After having been properly seshed in the new inn or whatever, this willpower just didn't take place, and the bus ground to a halt on the settled bypass at 1 AM, and there it stayed until about 4. And a very nice man came with some petrol, to this somewhat. Well, the Pennine Hut, just to come to what the end of the first term provided, gave the usual entertainment. 3 people, including Doug, so maybe say no more selfie, but England were at midday and didn't return until 10 PM. About the usual 5 people went caving, which is pretty reasonable for that sort of thing. And Eddie Edmondson managed to take out a double thickness, 20-foot square, 650 quid window with 14 pence bottom. To say about what's gone on, except to distribute 1 or 2 prizes. Now, the first award revolves around events probably a few bus meets ago when none of the so-called experienced people in the club wanted to go caving. So it was a second freshers trip back to Chapley Dale. And they'd gone to do the usual sort of trips, roaring, sunset, that sort of business. And Cabbage, who I mentioned earlier, was making a quick trip through Great Duke just before it cleared off to the hill in the usual cartwheel sesh. But he suddenly realised that he was lost. Forwards, backwards, left or right. So I think you're getting lost in the easiest cave in the world. Certainly goes to Cabbage. A ball of string. Now, second involves the usual sort of New Year's sesh at Clapham. Now, after having drunk several million pints of beer, Phil Howson left the pub in the early hours. Back to his bivvy bag to sleep it off.
It wasn't his bivvy bag.
He woke early the next morning to discover that it was a glorious sunny day outside.
I puked to his
Inside was strangely damp. I think if we had one, then the poor control of bladder award. Phil Howson. And third, which is a traditional award, the Sharking Award, I suppose, with the newly installed trophy which last year was presented with no competition whatsoever, to Finbar Moor. There's been some discussion. There's been a vague amount of competition about this, but almost certainly, this magnificent inscribed trophy, as by common committee consent, gone to a first year, a newcomer, Samantha Willis, who unfortunately cannot be with us tonight for various things, yes, in absolute
Footleg, legend proxy.
actually fill us in a lot of the details surrounding it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Are you just an ordinary caveman tonight?
No, if any little comes to it.
I guess you thought that you're right. Can I show you not to pay?
Yeah, no, I'm okay. Well, thanks very much. I think now we're to clear this room. We're ready for Captain Nemo. With his amazing discount. Oh, that's right, yeah.
What can you feel?
I'm serious as cancer when I say rhythm is a dance.
That's what we like him to please.
Ready for this?